Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaosium. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I'm your keeper, Keeper Michael, and we return to Horror on the Orient Express as we've just learned some very pertinent information that our characters seemingly have uncovered something important about one of their foes. I say one of because clearly they've attracted many enemies at this point. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this episode and listening, especially you, the Patreon supporter out there. You can join us on patreon.com/The Old Ways Podcast if you'd like. We have many, many things to offer. And on that note, introductions begin to my right.
Hi there, this is Mike, and I play James Robert Fraser, who is in the middle of a very long conversation about very difficult things that need to be achieved.
And to Mr. Fraser's right.
Hi, this is Rena. I play Lady Elisabeth Fitzroy, and I've about had it with Miss Bellinger's shenanigans.
Interesting. Yes, it did keep you from reading a book, which has just totally thrown the evening into a tumble. At the end of the table.
Hi, I'm Giles, and I'm playing Simon Griffith, and I've just about had it with James Fraser's shenanigans about trying to be a tough guy.
Interesting. And to Giles's right.
Hi, this is Miranda, and I play Maggie Bellinger, who's having a lot of conflicting feelings right now.
You are. You're just an entire yarn ball of conflict. I think it's fantastic. And last but most certainly not least.
I'm Martin, and I'm playing Richard Courtney, and Richard is one of Maggie's conflicting feelings at the minute.
Is that all he is? Interesting. Very well. We'll open the curtain tonight, we'll just say, a little bit ahead of where we were last episode. So the group will have gotten rest, been able to fall asleep, and during that time, they'll have recovered 2 hit points. Professor, you'll slowly regain the POW that you'd lost. The POW was temporarily lost. You'll regain this morning a D6, which I'll roll for you here now. So you can recover 4 points of POW.
That's good.
You begin to come back sort of to your normal self. And after the 2 hit point recovery, you should all hopefully feel a little bit better, those of you who were down hit points. All right. So you're all aware, at least via the timetable, that the train leaves just before 10 a.m. this morning. It'll afford you the opportunity to wake up and do all of the normal portions of what you do. We won't belabor the audience through those portions, but I'll just ask, is everyone appearing at that train station that morning, or is there something which must happen beforehand?
I'll be there.
Simon will be there at this time.
Right. So you all get the opportunity to collect your bags, check out of the hotel, and then using the services of the hotel, I assume through Mr. Fraser, you'll have your bags prepared and brought to the platform so that way the porters for the Orient Express can be prepared to put them aboard the train.
Yeah, I'll be up bright and early in order to make all the perfunctory travel arrangements.
Certainly. You do the thing that is important. You get in touch with Thomas Cook & Sons and inform them so that they can inform the Orient Express that you'll be needing your, places for this portion. You likely would have done that, I would imagine, last night before going to bed.
Yeah.
That said, you board the platform here in Belgrade at about, we'll say 15 minutes to, so it's about 9:45 in the morning. You've got about 10 minutes or so before the train shows up. Miss Bellinger, you have all but one of the pieces. My question to you specifically about the Simulacrum pieces is this. Have you left them where they were before you went on your journey with Richard?
Well, I think when I left with Richard, they were on the bed.
Yeah.
Because Richard came in, they were on the bed.
Mm-hmm.
We came back, I was on the bed, Richard was on the floor, so they would have still been there. I would have lovingly packed them back up if we were going to be leaving.
Okay. Yeah, so you've packed them into that steamer trunk and prepared them for transport.
Yep.
Okay. The pieces, when you pick them up this time around, are a little bit cool. They don't sort of give that same sort of vibrational energy as they did before. They feel a little odd.
I don't like that.
As you look them over before placing them in, you can feel there's just not as much vibrance in them as there used to be for you.
Do they seem distant?
Almost.
Are they mad at me?
You're not sure. It's confounding. Just because you garnered so much, they put you have been through so much with these pieces.
Mm-hmm.
You feel a little disconnected from them.
Yeah. I wonder if it'll take me another night's rest to reattune to them.
That's possible. But you pack them nice and tight and then get them ready for transport. And then I'll just ask Lady Elisabeth, just to be certain, I assume that the book is with you, even if it is, well, I guess unlocked technically now.
Oh, it's in my satchel where I can hold on to it at all times.
You'd likely have had to reinforce said satchel given the weight of the book, but we'll assume that you've done that previously because that's normally where you keep such a tome.
Precisely.
Okay. You're all aboard the platform waiting for it to arrive. There are a mass of guests, as there normally are when the Orient Express arrives. And once that beautiful steam locomotive becomes visually apparent, the clamor on the platform begins. Final preparations are made from the porters to fill the stockpiles of resources that such a train goes through. And then they begin, after it arrives, they begin placing your bags and trunks into the Furloin.
I think I'll be on hand just to make sure they treat our baggage with due care and attention.
Well, you get a lot of what we would call white glove treatment from the Orient Express's porters. They are smartly dressed as always in blues, and they or something dark depending upon the location, and they handle everything with utter care. There are some things that are a little strange this morning. There's an awful lot of cloud cover. It has been mostly nice weather your entire trip here, but the weather here now is turning. There's a little bit of a colder turn to the air here, and it feels like it's going to rain today. No one would likely know this better than Lady Elisabeth.
Yes, got the twinge in the knee today.
Just slightly, although it's much better than it normally would be.
The other thing that I'm doing whilst we board is keeping a very sharp eye about for an old man in a wheelchair or anyone that's not sweating. A little bit paranoid, perhaps, about being followed by you-know-who.
There are people with wheelchairs who do board, but they're both women, elderly women, that have likely personal assistants or medical staff who board with them. The train gets about 75% full. You get berths that are close to the former berths that you had, roughly the very similar layouts.
I think one of the things that I'll be doing is just making sure that the baggage handlers take, the porters take all the bags to the correct berths, that kind of thing.
Yep. You do a little what we would call logistics, and you make sure that things land in the proper location. They do. They mess up the differences between the steam trunks from Lady Elisabeth and Miss Bellinger, which has to be corrected. But other than that, the team boards the train. It's basically a 12-minute stop, Fraser. After that, everything is done, and the train is back on its way.
Richard's going to keep a very good eye out for any of Mrs. Griffith's potential associates.
So what you're saying, professors, is that you're not going to linger near the front of the engine and attempt to inspect the valves?
Not going to linger anywhere at all. He's going to hiding in shadows, and when there's a door that he can take, he'll make a beeline for the door and get on the train.
Very well. You make a beeline for it. The train takes off. Those of you who want to go into your sleeper cars and just relax have the ability to do so. You have the dining car, you have the saloon car at your command. You have a journey which by schedule here seems like it's going to take about 8 to 9 hours to complete. It doesn't look like you will arrive in Sofia until after dinner, roughly around 7 p.m. So I would ask the group at large, if you would like, to let your keeper know what exactly you'll be filling the time with. And we can start in introduction order, because that likely will be easier.
So I think Fraser will be spending some time looking at the traveller's guide that they've got for information on their destination. Later, they'll arrive in the evening. Also, we'll need to make preparations for somewhere to stay as well. So if I haven't had a chance to do that whilst we were in Belgrade, I'll certainly be trying to locate in whatever information we've got what might be an appropriate hotel to stay at, and speak to a train guard or one of the assistants on board about making necessary arrangements for getting to the hotel and also for staying at the hotel. Once again, we'd like a suite, if possible, with a communal area so that we can, have this kind of little private living space for the party.
Yeah, reading through the Traveler's Companion, it looks to you like there are 3 specific portions of the city that get mentioned. There's a modern city, which has the royal palace and sort of its hub. And there's an older Turkish quarter, narrow streets, or dark wooden dwellings, and then the suburbs, which are occupied by mostly middle class. Sofia has a pretty rich history. People have lived in the area for thousands of years. It reached its height, I guess, in the classical era under Emperor Constantine. It's a rather old city. It fell to the Turkish Ottoman Empire in 1382, and it was liberated by the Russians several hundred years later and declared a national capital not but about 40, 50 years ago. It has had some fair changes to it.
So is there any further information as well about any areas of the city, like museums, galleries, anything like that might potentially be somewhere we could start our search for the final piece?
Yeah, so there is an archaeological museum there. That's what they term it, the archaeological museum. There's the Royal Palace. There's the University of Sofia. There is the National Theatre.
The information that we've got suggests that when Sofia was invaded during the Bulgarian War, there were places that they secreted items of value and that kind of thing. So I think if there's maybe a museum or archives of some kind that might have information about the places where these artworks and so forth were hidden, because that might be a step in the right direction, hopefully. So I think that's probably going to take most of his time kind of trying to research that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you do have a couple of things that you can get taken care of, likely at one of the stops between. The staff here on the Orient Express could likely, at the next stop, some of the much smaller stops that happen between, they could likely get you a message ahead to one of the hotels here. There's one that lists in the Traveler's Guide the Hotel della Bulgari, that it overlooks the public gardens, and it adjoins the Royal Palace. It's likely one of the nicest places in town to stay.
Sounds spot on. Overlooking the gardens sounds perfect.
The unit of currency here is the leva, 25 of which make up £1 sterling. So you've got the weight of British currency in your pocket in any purchases that you make here.
I'm sure we can find a bureau de change when we get there.
Mm-hmm. They also list that the city holds a mineral bath as well.
Well, that might be a nice place to visit if we were on holiday.
If only. All right, very well. You have some things there you're cooking up as we go along, Mr. Fraser. Then I'll ask Lady Elisabeth the $64,000 question, which we all know the answer to is, what are you doing on your train ride?
I am secreting myself in my bedroom, my sleeping car, so that I can finally get through my book I am not going to let Miss Bellinger derail me this time.
I will let the hotel staff know that you have secreted yourself in your bedroom. They'll be back promptly. Okay. Yeah, so I think that is an amazing opportunity, a good 8-hour stretch to do nothing but read through a big book you've waited, quite a while to get into. I'll ask you some questions and you can let me know your answers. We know that the Lady Elizabeth speaks Latin. We're fairly familiar with that. What other languages do you speak?
French.
Okay.
And I picked up a few words in Russian and German, but I don't really have a whole lot of points in them. So French and Latin I'm fluent in.
Right. So the book is laid out in a style of Latin. I'll just put it that way. And I say style because Latin, the language, has changed a little bit, but not too terribly much. It still has to be interpreted. So this is definitely a Latin role that you'll be subject to.
Okay. My Latin is 50. And that is a 15. So hard success, not quite an extreme.
Okay. We'll assume moving forward, lest the player makes any other commentary, that you're going to read for the majority or entirety of your trip, yes?
Unless I'm interrupted. Yes.
Okay. So the first few pages of the book are enticing, to say the least. They list in a more written format with some light illustrations the lineage therein of your family or portions of your family. They put to dates and to locations the birthplaces of your half-brother. They put to the date and location Raymond's birth. The thing which you struggle with mightily as this sort of comes to a head at the end is the date by which this was written. So the dates spelled out that are given were written before Raymond's born. The book prophesies Raymond's birthday, and it hits it, which is a little bit, we'll just say, unsettling.
Is mine in there?
It is not. So after the first few pages, which seem to be more your father's writing, you're fairly familiar of the handwriting style at this point. Delved within those pages is a older writing style. It is a form of Latin that you have seen before, but it's likely several hundred years old. And the text is difficult to read, visually speaking, not because it is illegible, not because the ink has faded, not because of any of that, but the words seem to almost jump around on the page as you read them. Like the words try not to be read. It's literally the best way I can explain it. And so as you continue to work your way through the first few pages of this, we'll just say jumpy text, you get the feeling that what the writer is talking about or intending to talk about is the process by which life is connected on Earth. And it is not the sort of grand, deep expression that you previously got from Mother in the Woods. This is a much more, we'll just say, arcane text. It has lost the sort of ephemeral and primal message that you were sent. This is something that is more granular and technical. And it goes into diagrams, circles, lines, all sorts of geometric patterns. And after 4 hours or so of reading it, I'm going to have you make me a Constitution roll.
Oh no. My con's not too bad now. Okay, so my con is 59. And I rolled a 46, so a regular success.
Okay. So you get through about 4 hours of reading it, and your head is splitting by the end of it. It's sort of one of those headaches that has started at the base of your spine and wraps over the back of your head, and then just the sides of your face afterwards, a deep thrum that times up with your heartbeat in the worst sort of way possible. It makes your ocular cavities hurt, like you actually feel the muscles behind your eyes hurt. A very frustrating feeling when you're trying to learn something. whatever is here contained in, the first third of this book, as you've flipped through the pages, there is some type of formula here. It's difficult to read, but it seems to suggest that there is a machine which can be put together with the intent and purpose of destroying it. It seems to reference the simulacrum in some fashion. That's about the first half of your journey.
So it's like a mechanical formula, or?
Yeah, it's more like a set of instructions that you're having a really hard time reading.
Okay. So I'll be scribbling whatever notes I can in my own sketchbook.
Mm-hmm.
Just so for ease of reference later. And also not enjoying this migraine.
So, Mr. Griffith, if you would, for the audience, let us know what you have planned on this 9-hour train journey.
Well, it's fairly simple. Simon is packed very neatly, has replaced all his ammunition, and to the best of his ability, repaired the drum from the Thompson that blew out during the cave kerfuffle, and has packed everything. He still has the scroll, I believe, the one scroll in the trunk, because no one has ever requested it or retrieved it from there. And he is going to apply himself ruthlessly towards deciphering this script in Greek from Dr. Smith's office while he waits to get to the next location to find the response to his telegram.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and make me a roll in Greek.
That is a 38, and as you know, I do not have the luck to spend.
That's true. Okay, yeah, so what's your Greek currently?
It is a 7. Last time I deciphered the word ocean.
I will give you, we'll say 2 words here, because you've been working with this piece for a little while now. I will give you the word space in Greek in reference to not outer space, because obviously they would refer to it as something different like the heavens, but as in distance space. And then I will give you the word ship.
Okay, can I ask at least what order these appear in the script?
Yeah, the word space appears before the word ship.
And where does ocean appear amongst those?
It's about 3 or 4 words previously.
So it's ocean ... space or distance ship.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Certainly. Okay, so that brings us to Miss Bellinger.
Yes. Maggie is pretty bothered by this disconnect that she has had with the pieces. So she would likely spend the entirety of the time trying to reconnect with them in some fashion. Whether it's looking at them, caressing them, holding them lovingly, contemplating what it would be like to skin myself and wear them as a suit. All sorts of things, manners of things.
Well, if the current temperature of them is any sort of revelation, he would likely be putting on a rather cold new skin.
Maggie would maybe be sobbing slightly in her room as she's trying to get them back to her.
You try very hard to reconnect, and so because I think it would be fun, why don't you go ahead and make me a power roll?
Okay.
And we'll say that this is a hard difficulty power roll.
I rolled an 80 over 75.
So that is a failure as we see it. So you go through the process of touching each piece, trying to get it to feel the same way again, trying to find that exhilaration of energy and of enjoyment, even through the pain that each one of them caused you. Because that's been the other portion of this time that's been so difficult, is that the pain that they offered you, the difficulty in a knee or the pain in your elbow or wrist, all that's been alleviated. It's as if they don't speak to you anymore.
Can I spend the luck to make it a hard?
Well, it's an ability roll. So I would offer you the road of pushing the roll, or I would offer you the ability to spend down to a hard success. That is totally your option as a player.
I don't know if Maggie would. Oh, if I push it, it's gonna be so bad when I fail it, Mike. And it's so important to me, Maggie. So I don't know if Maggie would push it. I think Maggie wants to spend down to an amount that puts her life at risk.
I'm happy to let you do so.
It is a 43 point spend, which will put me at 23.
You spend 43 points of luck. In doing so, you arrange the pieces in several different fashions over the next few hours. You gain some sort of strange insight while doing this. You lay down in the bed, sort of making a place for each one of these pieces. And then one by one, you realize that the way to connect with them is to have direct skin-on-skin contact with each one of them. That's the way it must be. If someday you'll wear it, then you have to, again, get that first touch feeling again from the simulacrum. And so you do what must be done. You shed the clothes as necessary inside the privacy of your own berth and place these pieces, all except the head, on yourself. And all at once, a terrifying rush comes back to your skin. Exhilarating, painful, excruciating in some senses. But you feel that baleful connection come back to you. And the best part is that at the end, you enjoy it. Because it is the pain that reminds you that you're alive, and that it reminds you that there's something worth fighting for, whatever ends it may be. If truly the head lay in Sofia, then you are very close to completion. You lay there for several hours, writhing in pain, likely several times having to cover your mouth so that way you don't scream. But you get what you want. The connection returns. Richard, in a berth likely not too far from Miss Bellinger's, how are you spending your time?
Richard will be doing two things. He's going to be very concerned about Maggie and the fact that she's, I don't know, something's wrong. She's, wanting to sort of sacrifice herself for this compt. Well, that's what it seems like anyway. Skinning yourself doesn't sound like a particularly healthy thing to do, at least. So he's going to be thinking about that and trying to hatch some sort of plot to, separate Maggie from the compt, to get her to see sense. She must be under some sort of spell or something like that. And the other thing he will do is he has to admit that the compt had a point with the device, and perhaps he has been using it somewhat too much. And he's going to go back to scientific principles, and he has been religiously keeping notes about every time he uses this thing. And he's going to see if he can review his notes and work out if he can just spot a pattern in what any of the rest of the lenses do that he's not already figured out.
Okay. What pattern would you be looking for then? Any pattern?
Well, I don't have a record in one place of all the times he's used it and the lenses that he's used. But he's pretty sure he knows what the blue and the green one and the yellow one does. But he's a bit confused about the pink and the black at the minute. So he's going to sort of review his notes and see if he can, I don't know, maybe work out by comparing the experiences of those lenses plus the other ones. Now he knows what the other ones do. If he can sort of use that as some sort of logic to work out what they do.
Okay. So I would say this. You're fairly certain, after your experiences in France, that the pink lens is a site of what was. This is when you would have identified, or at least seen, the troops walk through during the French Revolution. It's one of your really first big views through the device, was seeing the gallows and the French Revolution as the aristocracy met their day there in France.
He's slightly confused because he thinks the green one was for the past. Unless there's a subtle difference between the two.
There is. Subtle difference is the way that time is being dilated. So the green lens, at least in your research, seems to afford you some sort of look into the future. Something of what may be possible.
Interesting. What's the black one to work out?
You haven't identified the black lens yet.
No. Does the device work with just one lens?
I don't know that you've ever tried it with one lens. It's been several seasons. It's possible, but I don't believe you've gotten a successful use out of it.
You see, this is going to weigh heavily on Richard's mind. He starts off with good intentions. He's hungry for knowledge. So I think he's probably going to... I don't know. I mean, the new lens is dangerous. I mean, that could actually take you somewhere and put you somewhere you don't want to be. So you'd need to be pretty sure before using that one again. But I think he might just kind of, I don't know, put the black one in there. And he's fairly sure he knows what the blue one does. So I think he's going to probably just sort of pop them both in there and go through his notes and think about them and go through his notes and stare at them again and probably just think, oh no, come on, just a little bit and pop it on.
Okay. So the blue lens has been identified for you. That gives you sort of that microscopic detail. The black lens, you utilizing it, you first have to make a power roll if you're actually going to put the lens on and use it, because we all know that you love this portion of it.
61. It's a pass.
Okay. It's a pass. That's what's important. You would have gotten a night's sleep. You would have gotten 8 points of magic back than what you had before. I'll only take one of those from you.
So he's got 7 left now.
Yep. So this experience through the train is a little bit different. When you utilize the black lens with the blue lens on the other side, you get a lot of interesting detail work, although it is by no means a vision of what you were hoping for. Everything within the train car here, you're able to look down on a very granular level on everything through the grains in the wood. And what that black overlay seems to give you is that, I guess, feeling of being able to see things which are not normally present. So when you look up around your berth here on the Orient Express, you see that there are several shapes in this room with you. Humanoid shapes. Some of them are standing like in a corner. Some of them are facing you.
I think Richard's very much thinking these are people that were.
Yeah, I mean, would give you an occult roll if you'd like.
Oh yes, let's do that. Richard's occult is not too bad. He has 20 points. So 12.
Ooh. Yeah, these appear to be apparitions. Or as your companion, Simon, might call them, hates. They're spirits.
Oh, interesting. So he was probably right not to use the new lens and the black. That could have been bad.
It's possible that might have been bad, yes. You wouldn't know unless you used them together, but at least for certain. But from what you're seeing visually, there are all sorts of things walking into and out of the rooms here. People dressed in clothes from, decades past, to animals that seem to walk the grounds. And these apparitions are walking into and out of your room. They don't seem to bother you. Some of them sit right next to you. One person tries to sit on you, which is a little startling.
If he can do it subtly, and that might not be a possibility, I think Richard's going to try and, if this is at all possible, see sort of beyond the walls to see if he can sort of detect any Comte style, because he suspects that he might be quite visible if he's here.
Well, it's not detect undead, Richard, but if you're going to tour the Orient Express with your device on, then I can give you more information about what happens outside your berth. But until you do that, there's no comped radar on this thing.
Yeah, he's only going to try and imagine himself being in another part of the train. If he can't pull that off, I don't think he's brave enough to actually open the door and walk out.
Nope, likely not. Although, I would say that there are likely feelings that you get through the walls here, especially with the black lens attached. You get impressions from, obviously, look out the window and you can see likely things within the air. Nothing that you can get focus on quick enough, but you can get feelings from the walls next to you. There's something going on in the berth that's next to you. This would likely be Maggie's cabin. That feels very strange.
I think Richard probably would, on the basis that it's Maggie and that it's only next door. Probably kind of wander next door and not.
You open the room, you open the door to your berth, and you step out into the hallway. In that hallway are hundreds of spirits walking the aisles of the Orient Express. There are people every size and shape, and several of them begin to lock eyes with you as you are now moving. And I'm going to ask you to make me a sanity roll in this regard, as many members of the undead have suddenly found you very interesting.
That's 43 under 44.
All right, you're going to keep it together at this point. You shut your door very quickly, and you move to Miss Bellinger's door. Are you going in, or are you knocking?
I think at this point, he's probably just going to burst in.
You burst into Maggie's room. You see her there, laying on the bed, with several pieces of the simulacrum covering her. There are several beings in her room, sitting semicircle around her, seemingly watching what she's doing on the bed.
He's going to Maggie, there are dead people around you. There are some spirits, and what is that? You need to put the statue away.
Richard, stop. I just got them back. Get out of here. They'll leave me again if you can't interrupt this.
I think they're possessed.
Of course they are.
What, you mean you know?
This Maggie's like just laying there covered in these simulacrum pieces. Of course Richard, there's a power here that neither you nor I can comprehend right now.
I know, but some things are odd coming from me. Some things are best left alone.
I think right now I would be best left alone, Richard.
We need to have a discussion about this later.
Yes, later sounds like the perfect time.
Richard will take the device off at this point.
Oh, wow. You know what's funny is that there are no spirits in this room. Clearly, you can't see a single one anymore. You're not terribly certain that Miss Bellinger has any clothes on.
Oh, Richard just can't really even utter a word, but he's going to just open the door.
So, Richard, we'll leave you heading back to your room, still a little bit dizzy from what you've seen. Dinner is made available. The staff let you know, Mr. Fraser, that the timing dinner will be at 4:30. If you and your party would like to be seated.
Yeah, I think unless the porters or the train staff go around all the cabins, knocking on the door and letting the passengers know, then Fraser will take that upon himself for the members of the Fitzroy party.
All right. So you would let Lady Elisabeth know that there will be dinner served?
Yes, indeed. I think I'll just go and politely chap the door, and if she's not sleeping, if she answers, then he will just let her know just through the door.
I don't think I'll be joining you for dinner this evening, Mr. Fraser, but thank you.
Would you care for me to have something sent to your room?
If you don't mind, thank you.
Very good, your ladyship.
I'm not leaving my book. I don't know when I'll get more uninterrupted reading time. I'm not leaving it for dinner. Who needs food?
Right, you've got some crazy old spell book. Who needs food?
I've got a book. That's all I need.
Right, clearly. So on that note, then, I would just say as an informational note for you as you read your headache, migraine-inducing book, I'm going to give you a hard intelligence roll because I think it's a worthy challenge for Lady Elisabeth. And it might give her an opportunity to uncover perhaps something important about the book.
0, 1.
You're going to regret that. That's okay. We'll get there. So first of all, a 0-1 is worth 5 points of luck from your keeper. Congratulations. Take it and enjoy it for however long it lasts. Secondly, the realization you come to likely just before about 4 o'clock is the feeling you're getting is the same sort of feeling that was described by some of your aunts, likely also your mother in some of more recent conversations in the past years you've had when someone tries to read a book without their glasses on. It's the same sort of, I can't focus on what does this word say? You sort of go through the same sort of motions, and after a while you come to this eureka moment that is, maybe I need glasses? And then there's like a pause in your brain. And you're like, mentally, the wheels sort of click into place, that there's a specific set of glasses that you do not have.
I'm going to go find the professor then.
Okay.
I mean, it was helpful last time, so...
Professor, there is a knock on your door. I'm not sure this one is subtle.
Not one bit. It's not Miss Bellinger, Professor.
Yes, Lady Elisabeth. Yes, please do come in. And Richard will get up to open the door.
I've already opened the door and walked in.
You assist her in opening the door. That's what you tell yourself.
That awkward moment when you grab the handle and someone's already on the other side.
Professor.
Yes?
Would you mind assisting me with that wonderful device of yours? Again, it's been a while, but I rather think... she'll tap the book. I need some extra assistance in deciphering a few things.
What's it written in? The book?
Latin.
I'm afraid I don't speak any Latin.
I do. I'm asking you to let me use the device, and since you seem to know which lenses work, perhaps you can assist me in choosing them.
Well, you'll have to, if you can explain to me quite what you're looking for, I can help you make a selection. Perhaps, are you looking for dead people?
Long pause. I don't believe so, not this time.
Right. What's the nature of what it is you're looking for? Is it something from the past, perhaps, or?
Potentially, and she'll just open the books a little bit. The words keep sort of moving around. I can't quite get a fix on them. Just rub the back of my neck a little bit. Quite painful to try to read.
Well, I might recommend we could try maybe the blue and I don't know. This is it's an old book, so how about maybe the pink as well?
Whatever you suggest, Professor. This is your area of expertise.
Well, I'm only still learning it, but I would, based on some recent discoveries, I think that would be the optimum pairing.
Marvelous. Shall we give it a go then?
Professor, you're going with pink lens. What else?
Blue.
Okay, interesting. Well then, I suppose the professor should make a power roll then. Or are you preparing the device for her to use?
Oh, very much so, yes.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm putting it on. I'm the one who reads Latin.
Very good. Good luck to you. All right. So, Lady Elisabeth, please make me a power roll as the professor attaches this device. You get immediate flashbacks of that last time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, my POW is 70, so I've got a good chance, and I rolled a 16.
All right. So, I am going to play a hand of fate against you, and I'm going to upgrade the MP cost because you are working out of school. Okay, you're going to spend 8 points of MP to activate the device. You can feel it attach, to your head, just as it did beforehand. And as it does, you feel that flow, like you felt in the woods. You felt the flow of essence come up from the deepest portions of the earth and into your body eventually, right? This is a extraction that happens in reverse. It sort of comes out of the center of you. You feel your own power push out. And then just before it leaves your perceptions, it gets driven right into the front of your head. And the lenses, for you, Richard, on the outside, immediately glow their intended color. And there is, as there was the last time, a very powerful scream that comes out of her. This time, though, it does not happen for nearly as long. And you get control of the sight of what you see. And the first thing you do is, of course, rip open the cover of the book and stare at it.
Before Mr. Fraser comes running.
Yes. This is something that's not lost on the rest of the compartments. I would just say, for Miss Bellinger's sake, respectfully, she doesn't give a shit because she's in the middle of something right now. And that's just your keeper knowing what the player is likely to want. So yeah, there is a scream from Richard's room, Mr. Fraser. Although it is Lady Elisabeth screaming, that is something you are attuned to at this point. Unless you're claiming you do this while he's at dinner.
Depends on if Richard went to dinner, I suppose. Or was planning to, because if he was, then obviously not.
No, I don't think Richard was planning on dinner. He was being... I think he's still quite shocked after what he saw in Maggie's room.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll have you make a luck roll to see if there's a member of staff coming while you're doing this. That could be all sorts of fun.
Okay, well, with the extra 5 that I got with that crit, I have 92.
Ooh, fun.
And I rolled a 41, so...
Okay. So, there's no member of staff coming. So, the book itself reads, again, in Latin, but this time the words sort of squeeze and correlate together. They don't run far afield. They don't vibrate through on the page as they did beforehand. And you begin to read a little bit of what seems like a story that has been written in Latin. It recounts a tale in the 11th century that the Simulacrum came into the possession of a, for lack of a better term here, an occult studier, a Turkish occultist by the name of Sedekvar, who had fallen from his Islamic faith and turned against his emir. He was protected behind the impregnable walls of Constantinople, and so he grew to great wealth as a evil apostate, essentially. One night he caught a thief in his treasure room, and he had the man flayed to death on the spot, so that the thief might die in sight of the gold he desired. The unblinking gaze of the statue, the Sedekvar, or I should say, the Simulacrum, watched him be tortured over and over again, each piece of skin falling eventually to the floor. And it's at this point, it is written here in the text, that the statue came alive and proclaimed itself some sort of servitor of a name you can't pronounce. It's actually written in a tongue you don't understand. The statue demanded worship from this occultist, Sedekvar, and in return taught him something called the Ritual of Enactment, which empowers the statue and unlocks foul magics inside of it. The greatest of which, it is written here, is that the owner of the Simulacrum can don the skin of another human and faultlessly assume the guise of that person It is written here, too, just in this first few pages that you get, that Sedekvar lived over 100 years. He unearths something the book calls the Mims Sahis. It's a Vorish knife, which heralded the coming of the Skinless One in the time of Constantine the Great. It is an artifact, the text here lists, which should be destroyed as soon as a single piece is found.
Oops.
It is written at the end, the portion you're at, that the following text contains the ritual to destroy it. And that's about all you'll get at this point. You become physically exhausted. Like you need to sit down.
Stumble back a little bit, feeling for a chair.
Are you okay?
Think I'm done now, Professor. If you could get rid of this thing for the moment.
Yes. What was it, may I ask, you discovered there?
Take it off first, please.
Oh, right. Yes, yeah. Richard will remove it.
You remove it.
Better?
I think so. Am I bleeding from the temples again like last time?
No, actually. It seems the fortification of your body has assisted you with surviving its use, at least in this attempt.
Quite a piece you have there, Professor. Lean back in a chair, kind of exhausted.
I don't think we should mention this to Mr. Fraser. He was somewhat unhappy about it last time, as I recall.
Yes. I do recall. I don't think we should mention this to Miss Bellinger either.
No, quite. Quite. I'm a little worried about her.
Just a little?
Well, quite a lot, in fact. I heard some noises from next door, and I know it's not proper, but I don't know, sometimes, I don't know if someone sounds like they're in distress. I had a look, and she was lying there on the bed with the pieces of the statue on her. It was most unusual. I don't suppose you would perhaps see it to stop by and check she's still okay. I'm afraid she was a little angered by my presence.
I'm not sure I'm up to Miss Bellinger at the moment, but I will do my best when I can breathe again.
I assure you she's quite subdued. Well, I'd be interested in your opinion, at least, anyway, in terms of what you think might be happening there.
Nothing good, I would imagine.
No, that was my suspicion too.
Would you mind walking me to my sleeping car, Professor? Not quite sure I can manage on my own at the moment.
Yeah, that's fine. And Richard will assist.
Richard, you and Lady Elisabeth leave the berth. And it's at this point, Fraser, that you're coming back, having done some of your logistics for the with the porters, where Lady Elisabeth is exiting the professor's berth, and she looks extremely tired.
Your ladyship, are you all right? You look a little tired.
Oh yes, Mr. Fraser, we were just doing some studying of Papa's book.
Oh, I see. Did you discover anything of use?
I believe so, but I will need a little bit of time to assemble it, so to speak.
Of course. Well, that's good news that we're making some progress. Definitely good news. Yes, indeed. I was just going to see about something to eat for us.
That would be marvelous. Thank you.
Splendid. Well, I will. I'll have one of the staff call in on you shortly with a meal.
I do look like I'm about to pass out at any moment.
Would you care to take my arm back to your apartment?
Thank you for the assistance, Professor. Perhaps you would keep an eye, ear, all of the senses, perhaps, on Miss Bellinger.
Yes, I will.
And do let me know if anything changes, and I'll take Fraser's arm.
Okay. So you get settled, Lady Elisabeth. Fraser, you call for a meal for her ladyship. It's clear that she's lost a little of energy and she probably just needs to, have something to put her right. Professor, for your part, you're able to get settled back in your own berth to take some more notes, likely, especially notes on a successful use of the device by someone else, which is a breakthrough, especially for Lady Elisabeth. And so there's got to be proper notation of this event for certain. But we'll close out this session with you, Miss Bellinger, just reveling in the pieces being seemingly reattuned to them as you, I guess, bask in the pain that they offer you.
Oh, absolutely.
And you are shepherded on the train ride to Sofia by the gaze you feel from the window. You cannot see a figure there, nor a face, nor eyes, but there is a presence outside your window that you feel seems to be looking in on you, patiently providing you a steady influence, a reassurance.
That's fantastic. I was worried I had lost his affections.
It doesn't seem so. And so, we'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of Horror on the Orient Express. We greatly appreciate all you do for us. And so I'll say good night.